Your sales manager is probably missing most of what is happening on the sales floor. Not because they are bad, because they are human. Let's say the sales manager has to audit 8 reps that had 20 sales calls each this week. That is 160 sales conversations. Now add CRM updates, pipeline movement, compliance checks, objections, follow-ups, role play, coaching notes. No sales manager is catching all of that manually every week. So we built an AI sales manager that does. In this video, I am going to show you how it scores every rep, finds the exact calls where they struggled, checks the CRM, creates coaching points for the manager, builds custom surveys, and even role plays with the rep as a difficult prospect. But here's the best part. It does not replace the sales manager. It gives the sales manager the evidence they wish they already had. Here is the problem with most sales coaching. It is based on fragments. A manager hears one call, looks at one deal, checks the pipeline at the end of the week, then tries to coach the rep based on what they happen to notice. But the real pattern is usually hidden across dozens of calls. One rep might sound confident, but keep losing when the prospect says, "I need to talk to my spouse." Another rep might be great on the phone, but their CRM is a mess. Another rep might have a decent close rate, but create compliance risk on half their calls. If the manager only reviews 2 calls, they might coach the wrong problem. That is the danger. Bad coaching is not always a leadership problem. Sometimes it is a visibility problem. So the goal of this system is simple. Stop guessing. Start coaching from evidence. Here is the full loop. First, every call is recorded. Second, the AI scores the call against your sales standards. Third, it checks the CRM to see if the rep actually kept the pipeline clean. Fourth, it looks at compliance, objections, discovery, rapport, close attempt, and follow-up behavior. Fifth, it rolls everything into a weekly score for the rep. Then it creates a coaching plan for the manager. And this is where it gets different. The system does not just say, "Sarah needs help." It says, "Sarah is strong in discovery, but she missed 3 financial objections this week. 2 deals sat in the wrong stage. And here are the exact calls the manager should review with her." That is what I mean by catching what the manager misses. The scorecard is the center of the system. Every rep gets graded across the things that actually matter: call performance, discovery, rapport, compliance, objection handling, close attempt, CRM cleanliness, follow-up behavior, sales velocity. And I want to be clear, this is not a vanity score. The point is not to embarrass the rep with a grade. The point is to tell the manager where to spend their coaching time. If one rep has a low call score, that is one kind of problem. If another rep has a strong call score, but a terrible CRM score, that is a different problem. If a third rep builds great rapport, but never isolates objections, that is another coaching plan entirely. That is the first retention piece of the system. Every rep gets a different path based on what they are actually doing. Let me give you an example. A prospect says, "I like it, but I need to talk to my spouse." A weak rep hears that and says, "No problem, I will follow up tomorrow." That sounds polite, but it may be a misclose because the rep never asked, "Is your spouse usually involved in these decisions?" Or, "What do you think their biggest concern would be?" Or, "If they were comfortable with this, would you want to move forward?" The AI catches that. It tags the objection as a spouse objection. It scores how the rep handled it. It identifies the missed question. Then it gives the manager the exact moment in the call to review. That creates a completely different coaching conversation. Instead of saying, "You need to get better at closing," the manager can say, "On this call, the prospect gave you a spouse objection. You accepted it too quickly. Next time, your job is to understand what the spouse needs to hear before you let the call end." That is specific. That is coachable. And it is much harder for the rep to ignore. But calls are only half the story. The CRM tells you whether the rep actually followed the process. This is where a lot of sales teams fool themselves. A rep can sound great on the phone and still create chaos after the call. Wrong pipeline stage. Missing notes. No next step. No follow-up task. Deal sitting for 4 days. That is not just admin work. That is lost visibility. So the AI checks the CRM too. Did the rep move the deal to the right stage? Did they leave useful notes? Did they create the right follow-up? Did they let a hot opportunity sit? Did they move too slowly from consultation to quote, from quote to payment, or from payment to close? This matters because sales velocity is not just about motivation, it is about process. If the rep keeps letting leads sit between stages, the manager needs to know that before the month is over. The system also checks compliance. This depends on the business, but the idea is simple. There are things reps should say. There are things reps should not say. And there are parts of the call where sloppy language can create risk. Most managers only catch that if they happen to hear the call. The AI can review every call against the same standard. So instead of waiting until a problem becomes a complaint, the manager can see the pattern early. That is the second big value. This is not just sales coaching. It is quality control. Now this is my favorite part. The system turns all of that data into talking points for the sales manager. Not a 40-page report, not a wall of transcripts, a usable coaching plan. It tells the manager, here is where the rep improved. Here is where they struggled. Here are the exact calls to review. Here are the objections they missed. Here is the CRM issue that keeps showing up. Here is the role play topic for the one-on-one. And here is what needs to improve before next week. That is where the AI becomes useful. Because the manager is not starting the one-on-one by asking, how do you think the week went? They are starting with evidence. They can say, I reviewed the pattern from this week. You are improving in discovery, but we need to work on financial objections. I pulled 2 calls where this happened, and we are going to role play the second one. That is a better one-on-one. It is tighter, it is fairer, and it is much easier to repeat across a whole team. Then we added a weekly closer survey. Every rep gets an 11-question survey, but the questions are not generic. They are based on the rep's weakest part of the sales process. If the rep keeps losing on financial objections, the survey tests financial objection handling. If they keep losing on spouse objections, it tests decision maker discovery. If they are weak in rapport, it tests the discovery questions they should ask before trying to close. The survey is multiple choice. It is scored automatically. And now the manager has another signal. Not did the rep perform well, but does the rep understand the coaching? Those are not the same thing. Some reps know what to do, but need practice. Other reps do not understand the standard yet. The system helps the manager separate those two problems. Now here is the part that makes this more than a dashboard. The system also gives the rep a voice role play. The AI acts like a prospect. One prospect is just looking around. One has a financial objection. One needs to talk to their spouse. One is skeptical. One has not built enough trust with the rep yet. One is confused because the offer was explained poorly. The rep gets on the call and has to handle the scenario live. Then, at the end, the AI scores the role play. Did they pass? Did they fail? Where did they do well? Where did they lose control? What should they have said differently? And because the role play is tied to the rep's actual weak point, the training is not random. If the rep keeps losing on financial objections, they practice financial objections. If they keep losing on rapport, they practice discovery and trust building. If they keep losing on spouse objections, they practice decision maker questions. That is the loop. Real calls reveal the weakness. The survey checks understanding. The AI role play builds skill. The next week's calls show whether they improved. That is what a coaching system should do. The system also drafts feedback for the rep. This lands in the sales manager's inbox as a draft. The manager can edit it, add their tone, soften it, sharpen it, add context. But they are not starting from a blank page. The draft says, here is what we reviewed this week. Here is where you improved. Here is the specific area to focus on. Here are the calls that showed the issue. Here is what to practice. Here is the expectation for next week. That saves time. But it also does something more important. It makes coaching consistent. Every rep is reviewed against the same standard. Every manager gets the same evidence. Every follow-up is tied back to behavior. A normal dashboard tells you what happened. Revenue is down. Close rate is lower. Pipeline is slow. Follow-ups are late. That is useful. It is not coaching. This system connects the number to the behavior. If close rate drops, it can look at the calls and say, The rep is skipping discovery. The rep is not isolating objections. The rep is not confirming the decision maker. The rep is moving deals too slowly. The rep is saying something that creates compliance risk. That is the difference. Reporting tells you what happened. Coaching tells you what to do next. Here is the weekly rhythm. Calls come in, the AI scores the calls, the CRM is reviewed. The rep gets a weekly grade, the manager gets talking points, the rep gets a custom survey. The rep completes voice role play, the system drafts feedback. Then next week, the system measures the rep again. That is the part that matters. This is not a one-time report. It is a performance loop. Call, score, coach, practice, measure again. If the rep improves, the score should show it. If the rep does not improve, the manager sees it quickly. That is how you stop coaching from being a once-a-month conversation and turn it into an operating system. If you manage a sales team, the business case is pretty clear. You get cleaner calls, cleaner CRM data, better compliance, faster pipeline movement, more consistent coaching, and reps who know exactly what they need to work on. The sales manager gets time back. The reps get better feedback. Leadership gets a clearer view of who is improving, who is stuck, and where the team is breaking down. That is why I think AI is going to be huge in sales management, not because it replaces managers, because it gives managers the visibility they were supposed to have. So if I had to summarize the system, it is this. Every call becomes coaching data. Every CRM update becomes a quality check. Every rep gets a weekly grade. Every weak spot turns into a survey or role play. Every manager gets better talking points. And every week, the team gets measured again. That is what an AI sales manager should do. It should not just summarize calls. It should help the team get better. If you want more AI content like this, please like the video and subscribe. And I want to ask you a question. If you manage a sales team, what is the hardest thing to coach consistently? Call quality, objection handling, CRM follow-up, compliance, or getting reps to actually practice? Comment your answer below. I want to know where your team gets stuck the most. Thank you for watching.